What's going on, everybody? Thank you all so much for tuning into today's episode of the Max Manus podcast. First and foremost, happy opening day. We finally made it. Opening day to me has always been like easily the best day of the year. Birthday, New Year's, all these other things that everyone throws out as like new beginnings and, benchmark days for me. It's all like opening day. Opening day is the morning that I wake up and everything in life changes. Everything turns to color for the foreseeable future. So super, super excited. Decided I wanted to start recording a bit of an intro to these just to give a bit of background on the guest and update the people on anything that I have going on in my life. First off, the astute viewer will notice that my backdrop in this episode is not my standard New York City apartment. I was recording this when I was in Florida a couple days ago for Yankee spring training, and I was crashing at my good friend Ben Blaine's house, who was kind enough to let me borrow his bedroom for recording this. So if you see any cool Yankees jerseys and stuff like that in the back, I can't take any credit for those. That's all Ben. Shout out Ben. Today's guest is Jacob Steinmetz, who has an incredibly cool story that people in the Jewish world are probably a little bit familiar with. But if you're not from that world, just to give a bit of background, Jacob comes from an Orthodox Jewish background, much like myself, which essentially means that you follow all the wacky Jewish rules as it pertains to kosher, not eating certain foods, and Shabbat and the holidays, these Saturdays and other days where you can't really travel, can't use electricity. There's all these prohibitions and stuff like that. And let's just say there's not a whole lot of minor leaguers that have to deal with that as they're pursuing the road to the show. So it's given Jacob an incredibly cool story and some really just unique insight from along the way, and really helped put him in a position where he's really just inspiring a whole lot of people, whether it's young Jewish kids that, are keeping Shabbat and trying to make it to the big leagues one day and never thought that would be a possibility. It's just, he's doing the damn thing. So much respect to him. Certainly someone that I would have looked up to if I was like a 10-year-old Jewish kid growing up these days. And even for those that do not come from the the Jewish world, I think you'll appreciate hearing the hula hoops and stuff like that he has to jump through to pursue his dream are intense, but it's pretty cool. He's really doing the damn thing, like I said. So it came out with an awesome interview. I always knew that for opening day, I wanted to have like a legit guest that the people would get excited for. So I hope this turned out to be that. I was really happy with how it turned out. And without further ado, let's get into the interview. What is up, everybody? Welcome to episode number 3 of the Max Manus podcast. Very, very exciting guest today. If you're involved in the Jewish baseball world at all, I bet you could have guessed this is someone I would have had on at some point. But nonetheless, very exciting to actually be doing it. Jacob Steinmetz, what's going on, man?
What's up? How you doing?
I'm good, dude. I think the people want to hear where you're at right now. All I know is you told me before we hopped on the call that you're in minor league camp in Arizona right now, which it's kind of nice for like the D-backs big leaguers that Arizona, like you're there year round. You don't got to be traveling to spring training, any of that stuff. But so you're chilling in Arizona with like all the big guys right now. So how's that been?
It's been cool. It's my 4th spring training now, I think. So it's cool to definitely be around the guys. And like you said, I mean, my first year I was out here in the ACL, and just seeing the big league guys coming in and out kind of every day whenever they're just trying to get some extra work in. Having that aspect of it where you're in Arizona still is really cool.
Yeah, was there like an early experience you've had? I mean, we'll get into the WBC stuff later. I'm sure that'll be like a whole other conversation. But between then and being in like the D-backs org now and like the whole process, has there been like one or two guys that you've come across and rubbed elbows with along the way that's been like a really cool moment for you?
Well, when we first got here, we had like orientation or whatever, and the 2 of the speakers that they have come in is Luis Gonzalez and Randy Johnson. So those were, I mean, pretty cool. My family wasn't too happy about the Luis Gonzalez one, growing up Yankees fans, but they managed. But those were obviously really cool to start. And then some of my first actual pitching and live batting practices were against Cole Calhoun, who obviously longtime big leaguer. So that was pretty cool. I'd say those are probably my first two experiences.
Yeah, it must be like, again, we'll definitely get into WBC stuff, but it's cool for me. I realized like, I remember when I was younger and I heard someone being like, 22, 23, however many years old, like I'd be like, oh, that's a standard age for a big leaguer and like or like a minor leaguer or whatever it is. And now I've gotten
Yeah,
to that age and I've been like, oh, dude, if I was up there just like throwing pitches to dudes that were 10 years older than me that like I had grown up with, like you say Cole Calhoun, like, yeah, sure, that guy's not, not like the most household name, but like, yeah, Cole Calhoun was like around the big leagues for a decade for a while. Like
yeah,
I remember
exactly,
the Angels teams that guy came up with, like playing with Trout
for
and
sure.
stuff like that. So yeah, are there guys that you have like actually like spoken to that it's been like, oh wow, this is a dude that I grew up watching and now this is like a teammate of mine essentially?
Maybe not anybody that I grew up watching. There are a couple of guys from my draft class that have made their debut now. That I'm pretty close with, like Lawler and Adrian Del Castillo, who came up last year. Who are kind of around, right now, like towards the end of minor league camp, and they're or whichever big league camp, minor league camp, whatever. They're about to go out to AAA, but it's cool seeing those guys around, especially after they make their debuts and have success. So I don't know if there's anyone that I really grew up watching yet, but
Okay, we'll get there. We'll get there. I guess
yeah,
the
hopefully, yeah.
whole point of this podcast is kind of wanting to talk to people from like all different areas about baseball, about what naturally like drew them to baseball and just why they love this sport and why they've invested so much to it. So I guess give the people the full story. Like, grew up in New York, obviously, like you weren't in one of these like really traditional baseball weather states where you're able to play year round, but still you like
Yeah.
clearly baseball was something that for you for a very, very long time, even if, being a big leaguer wasn't maybe the most popular career goal for for a lot of kids that they actually ended up pursuing in our Jewish
Yeah.
community. But talk to the people about like your I guess the early stages of how you fell in love with baseball.
Yeah, so I mean, I was playing t-ball in little league at a young age. I just always played, and I guess I was always just one of the better kids in my age group. So about 7 years old, my dad kind of started like he wasn't. My family's not a big baseball family, as I mean most, or like you said, Orthodox Jewish families in the area aren't huge baseball families. We're a big basketball family. So he just started kind of looking online and reaching out to different people about playing some travel ball. And we got in touch with like a team out on Long Island, that I started playing with when I was 7, 8, and 9, and then kind of just progressed up another level of travel ball each year. When I was 10, 11, I played on a more local Long Island team that was one of the better teams in Long Island, and then once I got to 12, 13, 14, started playing on another team that was more just kind of all around New York. That was one of the better teams in the country, and they kind of just progressed that way until about 15, 16 when I started trying to get recruited by colleges. And even at that time, like there was no kind of plan to go pro or even D1. It was kind of just to see where it could go, and if playing Division I baseball would even be an option. So I started kind of hopping around teams, just going to different showcases, getting in front of as many coaches as I could. And from then, I kind of just kept growing, put on some weight. By junior year, I committed to Fordham University. COVID hit. I started kind of working out, just throwing. Wasn't really a whole lot to do. Came out of COVID, senior year of high school. Fastball was in the low to mid 90s. So I went down to, COVID shut down our season senior year, so I had to find somewhere to pitch. So I went down to Florida at Elevate Academy. Went down there my first start down there. We kind of kept on the down low just so I could kind of get settled in and make my start and figure it out from there. I think there happened to be like another guy throwing on one of the other fields at the place we were at, that had some scouts there. And once I started throwing, the scouts kind of started shuffling over towards where I was throwing. And there was probably like 8 or 10 scouts back there, so it wasn't like anything crazy. It was kind of just guys that were just around in Florida watching some baseball. And by the next week, there was like 30 or 40 scouts behind the plate at my next start, and I just wasn't really expecting it. So I pitched then. I was down in Florida for about a month and a half, 2 months. Came back home, pitched a couple times back home, went to the draft combine, did some pre-draft stuff, and was able to get drafted by the Diamondbacks. And I mean, yeah, like you said, I grew up. Obviously, I played baseball for a long time. Like I said, my family's a big basketball family, so I played that also. But I was better at baseball to start with, so I always kind of took priority with that over basketball. And then by the time I got to around high school age, I realized that I maybe had the chance to just play in college, so I started kind of taking it more seriously, and then just kind of progressing and progressing. And as it kept progressing, I started taking it more seriously, and kind of led to where I'm at now.
Yeah, it's interesting. You talked about, for those that don't know, your dad, Elliot Steinmetz, is the head coach of the Yeshiva University men's basketball team. Go Max. It's interesting that, yeah, you grew
Yeah,
up in like a huge basketball household. Like, don't get me wrong, your dad, to the extent that I know him, huge, huge, huge baseball guy too. But basketball,
yeah,
I assume, was very much like the sport. I'm curious. So you mentioned that obviously, like when you sure, which one did I pick? I don't know, the one I was better at, the one I had a better chance of making it
yeah,
professional in.
exactly.
But is there something to the difference in your mindset when you find yourself on a basketball court versus like on a baseball mound? Because especially with being a pitcher, that's such like a unique position of control and kind of being able to entirely control like the tempo of the game that you don't really have that in other sports.
Yeah, and I mean the truth is like I was when I was younger, I wasn't only pitching obviously, so I was playing every day. As opposed to nowadays where it's pitching once a week. So it's a little different nowadays, but like you said, just kind of controlling the tempo of the game and being the main point. Whereas in basketball, like, I mean, don't get me wrong, like I love basketball and I for sure miss it sometimes because I haven't played in a while. But basketball, you have on nights, you have off nights like you do in baseball, but an on night, off night in basketball, you could just you not be playing or you're just not really part of the game plan as opposed to baseball, as opposed to pitching, especially where it's like my once a week comes and I'm on the mound and I'm the main part of that game every time. It's not so much like an ego thing, I guess, as opposed to like a confidence thing, where it's like there's no place I'd rather be, and I feel like I give my team the best chance to win, at least on any night, and that's kind of like the mentality that you have to have as a pitcher. Otherwise, you're not really gonna do too well.
Yeah, what was it like when you like at what point did you say like okay, pitching, like I'm focusing on pitching above like all other elements of baseball?
I think when I was 14, my the shortstop of my team committed to Wake Forest when we were in eighth grade,
Okay.
and the second baseman committed to Virginia like a year later. So I kind of just I was always pitching and I had a pretty solid curveball, so I was kind of like, you know what, I'll just focus on pitching, and I enjoyed it more. Like I'm not the most athletic guy, not the fastest guy, never hit for the most power. Like I was kind of just an okay hitter at that age, but I always had done pretty solid pitching. So I just started really focusing on that and kind of just fell in love with it.
Yeah, that's what kind of one of the cool things about pitchers that you're the third pitcher we've had on this podcast so far. We're 3 for 3 on pitchers as podcast guests.
Yeah,
And one of the things that I was talking with Harrison and Eric from the Yankees about is that when you're a pitcher, there's it's like the parallel between pitching to all other positions in baseball. You don't really have that in other sports. There's something so unique about, like I was talking with Eric was talking about how he grew up like watching the Giants teams when they had that crazy dynasty in the early 2010s, and he was talking about how watching Tim Lincecum for him when he was growing up was so cool because he was like, here's this dude that has such a unique body build, such unique skill sets, like probably wouldn't be going pro in the NFL or in the NBA. But there's something about
yeah,
people talk about pitchers being like weird all the time, that every single pitcher has these things that just like drew him to pitching. And it's like, I couldn't jump the highest, I couldn't hit a home run the furthest, but there's something about it's this weird mix of like science and mindset, but also still like athleticism that you need to be successful as a pitcher. So I guess
yeah,
yeah,
for
what was it
sure.
like for you when you were like, all right, like this is what I'm doing? Did your relationship with baseball like change at all?
Maybe a little bit, but kind of to the point you made. Like you said, I'm not the fastest. I don't jump the highest. Like not even close. Like there's some guys here that are freak athletes, hitting and pitching wise. But you do have to have a certain amount of athleticism to be a pitcher, or at least a successful pitcher, because I mean your body's just not really supposed to move the way that it does as a pitcher. But I'm able to hold my own on the basketball court. I was pretty solid at other sports. Like a pretty athletic kid, but like you said, if you watch me run or jump, it's not pretty. So I guess it's just I guess pitching is just a different. I guess it's a whole different kind of athleticism. In a way, like I mean, you look at guys like CC or Bartolo Colon or like guys like that, where like you said, like you look at them and it's like, all right, we're like these guys aren't really going pro in any other sport, but then you look at them and they're some of the greatest pitchers of all time.
Mhm.
So it's a very interesting kind of aspect to it, I guess. But I think that's what makes it so cool is that you could have like the NFL, like you have a receiver, you have a certain build for a wide receiver, has to be this fast, has to jump this high, has to has these different measurements that he has to hit, as opposed to pitching where you have so many different body types. You got to go from a guy like Pedro that wasn't the biggest guy but throws absolute gas on the mound to a guy like Bartolo Colon who's maybe little bit of a bigger guy and isn't throwing as hard, or at least wasn't towards the end of his career, but he's making the ball move in different ways and putting it exactly where he wants to and still having success.
Yeah, I think CC's the example that I always think of for a guy
Yeah.
that really had to change like how he was as a pitcher at various points of his career. Like when he got older and it was like 2016, 2017, like that CC wasn't able to pump 100 by guys the same way he was in like
Yeah.
2009, 2010. But you saw that he kind of like embraced that and he was like, all right, my slider is going to be the best slider I've ever thrown. Like I'm going to need to have a totally different arsenal in a way I approach guys just because I'm not the same pitcher that I was 5, 10 years ago. So for you, like going back to, from little league to high school and now in the minors and all the levels in between, how have you changed as a pitcher, whether in terms of like your makeup and what pitches you throw or like mentality wise? What are the biggest changes you've made along the way at each step of your journey?
I mean, I'll skip Little League just because
Yeah,
who
we
knows
don't
what's
do
going
little
on then.
league.
But I'd say high school, especially in my later years, I was able to just kind of. I mean, I was throwing hard enough, and my stuff was, I mean, good enough to kind of just get guys out no matter what at the high school level. Which then you get to minor leagues, and it's like a whole different ball game. Like I had to learn how to really pitch, and it took me a little bit. Like my first year, I was in the rookie league the whole year. Didn't have the best year. The next year, I got out to affiliate ball finally, and didn't have the best year either. And then finally last year, I kind of felt like it started clicking a little bit, where I was able to, I was able to set pitches up, attack the zone in different ways that I wasn't able to before, and really just, like not have to worry as much about knowing where the ball is going, I guess, as much because I was able to trust that it was going to go where I wanted it to. So that was probably the biggest change, I'd say.
So it sounds like it's been more, whether it's like mechanical stuff. Like it sounds like, have you developed any new pitches? They changed around with that at all, or are you still like my pitch mix is my pitch mix?
No, it's definitely changed a little bit. I was like back and forth, four seam sinker, four seam. So I'm on a four seam now. Curveball's been the same since I'm 12 years old, so that or 11 years old, so that's easy. And then it's kind of just how it is with baseball. I guess you're always just tinkering with different stuff. So like I've thrown the same changeup for a bunch of years, and now this year I'm changing it a little bit, and then I've thrown different types of sliders really throughout the however many years I've been pitching. So I'd say curveball's been the one constant, really.
Yeah, it's funny to think of you going from like, for those that don't know, the Yeshiva League is essentially all these Jewish high schools in like New York and New Jersey that all play each other, and it's like, listen, let's be honest, a lot of the product is exactly what you would think a bunch of like 16-year-old Jewish kids playing each other in baseball looks like, and then suddenly there's this one kid in the league that's just like mowing everyone down, and it's like, yeah, I think that kid's the one that might have a chance at going pro. Was it? Like I have to imagine that when you went from there to Elevate and then to the minor leagues, like just the level of coaching and technology and all that you had access to at each jump must have, like for you especially, must have made like what you were coming from seem like so pale in comparison. Was there ever a moment where you were like, oh my God, like I have this new technology or this new pitching coach or whatever it is, and that's like changed my whole mindset of the game and pitching? Or have you kind of been able to like stay consistent across that whole time, I guess?
I don't know if it's ever changed my mindset really. Obviously, it was like I guess I kind of got like I slowly started learning about this stuff. So like high school, obviously, like you said, starting with like not a whole lot. So like junior, senior year, I started like working on like different Rapsodo machines or TrackMan machines that pick up all the like numbers with velo and spin rates and all that kind of stuff. But I started like slowly working with that, and then like once I got into the minors, you obviously use that a whole bunch. But thankfully, I kind of understood it because I was slowly starting to learn it. So I don't think there was ever like a sudden change, which probably would have changed it a little bit more. But I think the little doctrinating part about it from junior senior year to the minor leagues definitely helped it not be that kind of huge mindset change.
Okay, cool. Let's get into the Jewish side of things because I'm sure that a whole lot of our
Yeah.
listeners wanna hear about that. So, I guess for starters, for a long time, I'm sure this was a thought in the back of your head of like, listen, if I go pro, the whole Shabbat thing, which for those who don't know, Shabbat, Friday night to Saturday night in the Jewish world, there's a whole lot of prohibitions. There's no like electronics, no travel. There's a whole bunch of things you can't do. So Jacob had to get pretty creative with some workarounds for that. Was there ever a time where that was like you saw that as a difficult trade-off, or were you kind of like, listen, like this is these are both things that I value, and this is something that I'm not going to be willing to cut corners on either one of these because these are both important to me.
I mean, it's something obviously that I've always thought about, but I think having my family be so supportive of it and always willing to help has been huge. And I think growing up doing that same stuff, like I was going to tournaments, I was staying with my dad or mom at a hotel over the weekend in wherever we were in Jersey or Georgia or Florida or wherever it was, and walking to a field. I think growing up doing that, like I mean, honestly, I had the doubts, especially when the whole draft process started, and even for college. But my parents always said, like, we've been figuring it out these whole like last 6, 7 years or whatever it was. Like, there's no reason we won't be able to figure it out now. And so far they've been right. I haven't really had any problems, and we've always figured it out. Whether it's a hotel close by the field, or the team hotel being close enough to walk, or finding even an Airbnb that's by the field if there's no hotel. And the team has been super helpful with that, also finding me different places to stay, or if it's possible to avoid pitching on Saturdays, then doing that. But sometimes with the 5-man rotation, especially,
Mhm.
it's not really possible to avoid it. So they've been helpful with finding me places to stay, and my family's kind of helped me obviously throughout the way as well.
Yeah, to what extent was that something you discussed in like pre-draft conversations with teams? Like, listen, I'll do my thing, I'll pitch, but there are some workarounds we got to figure out here.
Yeah. So at the draft combine that you set up, they have interviews set up with teams, and I'd say probably like 75% of the interviews were about that, and the other 25% that weren't were because I'd already talked to the teams about it beforehand. So it definitely takes some time to get to know. But I give credit to the team. I mean, all the teams seem to be really open about it, but I give credit to D-backs especially. Like they're always asking questions and doing like not really just doing things before. I don't want to say they have my permission, but have my kind of insight on it.
Mhm.
Um, and they're always asking me if stuff's okay with me, and I try to be as low maintenance as possible.
Mhm.
And I try to make it to everything, but sometimes it's just not. I'm just not really able to religiously, and they've been super supportive about doing whatever I need to do. So I give a lot of credit to the team for helping me out.
Yeah, for real, a ton of respect to them because I've read some stuff about it. Like they've really gone the extra mile with making sure that
Yeah.
all's good for you. I'm trying to think like kosher food wise. I'm sure that's the other big one. I'm trying to think if there are even any other ones. But like, what's your kosher food situation? Because I'm sure a lot of these minor league towns that you find yourself playing in, that not every single one of them just has like a Chabad house, a kosher restaurant, like something here, something there.
Yeah. So in Arizona, I'm good. So there's a couple of restaurants out here in Scottsdale,
Mhm.
but the team actually orders from one of the restaurants out here, like different like they get, I think it's like 12 meals a week or whatever it is,
Mhm.
or maybe 14. I don't remember. Whatever it is, they get me enough meals for the week to have for lunch and dinner from the restaurant out here. Plus, I'm able to Uber Eats or whatever it is if I want out here. So it's not too bad in Arizona. But once I get out to Visalia and Oregon and wherever we're at, so far what we've done is I've ordered from a place called Western Kosher in LA. It's like a big supermarket,
Mhm.
and they just ship me out like frozen pre-made meals.
Mhm.
And they work with a nutritionist with the team to kind of set up the schedule and shipping orders and all that stuff. And so far I haven't really had any problems with it. So they've made it as easy as possible, which is nice. It's not really something I've had to worry about. And in the case where I do have to worry about something, like I said, like I have my family, thankfully, to kind of back me up with that stuff. So it's been good so far.
That's awesome, dude. Yeah, I'm sure you hear it all the time, but I promise you, there are like so many, Jewish kids that are listening right now that are in like middle school, high school, and some of them have like dreams of going pro, to whatever degree it's realistic. That there's a lot of kids that
Yeah.
are saying to themselves, like, oh, if Jacob Steinmetz is doing it, like I could figure it out. Are there things beyond? I'm trying to think if there's anything beyond kosher and Shabbat that would that would ever impede with you baseball wise. Is there anything at like any other funny stories or things you've run into along the way that they're like clashed up against each other?
I don't think so. Maybe just holidays,
Right.
but that kind of falls into the same category as
Yeah,
Saturdays.
yeah,
Um, but I'm trying to think of. I don't think anything really that's kind of contradicted. I guess I will say maybe like Tisha B'av, which is a fast day for
mm,
those that don't know.
yeah.
So obviously that falls out in August usually.
Mhm.
So usually the team will just kind of they'll. I mean, thankfully it hasn't worked out that I've had to pitch on that day, which is nice. Um, but usually the team will just kind of I'll tell them about it and they'll be like, yeah, do whatever you need to do. I'll kind of just take the day off or play some light catch or whatever it is. Use it as a lighter day. Happens to be last year we were traveling on that day.
Mhm.
It was a Tuesday, so I kind of cut out some time and then we got to the field and I was supposed to throw a bullpen. So the pitching coach kind of was like, "Hey, if you're up for it, then you can throw it. If not, we'll do it tomorrow, or whatever." I was feeling like pretty solid. It was earlier in the day still, so I was like, "I'll throw a bullpen or whatever it is." So I went and threw a bullpen. It was actually a pretty good pen. And then I got back to the training room and I was just like, I need to sit down a little bit. Maybe that was not the best idea.
Yeah, I was gonna
But then it happens to be that was my best outing of the season right
say.
afterwards. So
Okay, nice.
I don't know.
Yeah, are
Might have to
there?
start doing that more often.
Have you? To what extent do you like discuss it with your teammates? Are there guys that are like, "Oh, what's that? What's that thing you're eating over there?" Like, why have you like? To what extent is it a topic of conversation? Shabbat too, I'm sure, is something that they're like, "What? You can't pitch on Saturday?"
Yeah, it happens. It happens a bunch in the beginning. I'd say it happens to be that I've been kind of with the same group of guys now for the last couple of years as we move up together. So they're all a lot of them kind of used to it, and it's gotten to the point where there's enough guys that know about it to where, like when the new guys come in, if they're like almost scared to ask me, they'll ask somebody else about it, and they're able to explain it somewhat,
That's cool.
or at least enough to where then they'll be like good enough to come up to me or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But so my teammates have been really good about it, helping me out, on Saturdays, whether it's with some lights or helping me get my stuff to the field or whatever it is, or bringing something back from the field for me. So that they give me some crap about it a little bit also, but that's kind of just how it goes sometimes.
Yeah, that's funny to think about, like Jordan Lawler and these dudes who are like huge name prospect, like probably going to be debuting at some point pretty soon. And part of their routine is like, oh yeah, we got to tell the young guys when they come up about like Jacob and the weird light switches on Saturday. It's pretty
Yeah.
funny. I want to talk to you about the WBC stuff because I think that was like a point of pride for so many Jews, like American Jews, Israeli Jews that just love baseball. Like baseball is like the Jewish sport. That's been something that I talked with Harrison about that for a little. And yeah, there really is something I think so deeply about like Jews in baseball that there's something about, I don't know if it's that we love like debating and we love the numbers and like we like that there's like a strategic element of it, but there really is something about like why Jews are drawn to baseball. So the WBC in that sense, when it was Team Israel, was like the coolest moment ever for us. And especially
Yeah.
seeing you going out there like this, skinny Jewish kid from Long Island going out there and like punching out Manny Machado in front of the whole world. So like talk to me about what that whole experience was like for you.
Yeah. So I'll start in 2017 when they made the run. I was watching with my brother, who's also a huge baseball fan. Um, and we were just following like everyone else was. We saw that they had won some games, so we started watching, and it became this really cool story where they won their pool and moved on to the next round and put up some good fights, and unfortunately weren't able to keep it going. But it definitely like kind of lit that spark to. I just started high school, and I was kind of maybe starting to look for different colleges or whether it was even possible. So it kind of gave me the thought to where I would possibly be able to play for them a couple years down the road. Never really thought about it much. COVID obviously happened, which canceled or pushed back, I'd say, whatever World Baseball Classic was supposed to happen then. And then when they announced that it was happening in 2023, and I saw that Team Israel was going to be in it, me and my dad kind of spoke about it to we talked about how cool it would be to be able to play for them. So he reached out to a couple guys that he knew from the team that we had been in touch with a couple years back, and they said, we're waiting on some guys, and we don't really know. And obviously, I was 19 at the time and hadn't even made it out to affiliate ball yet, so they were kind of like, it would obviously be a really cool experience and definitely cool for me to be on the team for maybe if I was going to be able to make it like a couple years down the road and kind of have that experience. But if a couple guys that decide to go that are kind of up in the air right now, I'm obviously going to be the first one out, which I understood. Like I was by far the youngest guy there, and then around beginning of February, I think I got a call, and they told me that they were going to put me on the team, which was awesome. But I wasn't really expecting to pitch much. I had talked to the pitching coach, Josh Zide. He had set up a call. He had called everybody, obviously, to kind of just talk about different pitching stuff, strategies, and let everyone know what their roles might be and stuff like that. And he had told me, he said, you're probably not going to pitch much. You might get in the game if we're up 7, down 7, just kind of eat some innings and get the experience and stuff. And that was fully okay with me. I knew I was going to be by far the youngest guy there, and I was really just excited for the experience, and hopefully, do enough to where I could at least have my name in the hat for the next one in 2026 to maybe be able to make an impact. So we got down there. I threw a bullpen one of the first days we got there, and then I think the second day or the third day maybe we had an exhibition game against the Nationals. And everyone was getting an inning. Like it wasn't anything special or anything like that. We had a game against the Marlins, I believe, the first day 9 guys pitched, and then we had the next day 9 guys pitched, and I happened to be we got the schedule and I was starting, so I was kind of like, all right, that's pretty cool. I don't really know why they would do that. I'm the youngest guy here, but all right, it is what it is. So I got that start, and that was my first time pitching in front of an actual crowd. Like the most people I pitched in front of before that was at the draft combine, which is mostly scouts and front office people and families, which you don't really, you're nervous for the scouts part, but it's not really a whole crowd with random people that you're kind of worried to pitch in front of. So I was really nervous for that. I didn't know what to expect. It was my first time. It was minor league, or not minor league. It was a spring training stadium, so it wasn't that many people compared to, a normal big league stadium. But I really didn't know what to expect or what the nerves were going to be, and thankfully, I was able to get through that 1, 2, 3. Didn't really think much of it. Kind of, got my inning in. It was good. I was happy with how it went. And I was like, all right, I'll be ready to pitch whenever they tell me to. So we get down to Miami on, I believe it was Friday. We drove down there, or Thursday night we drove down. So Friday we had a practice, and we got, I think, or it wasn't even Friday. It was Friday we had the practice, then we had Shabbos. So I headed back from the field early, actually, because practice was running a little late. I had to make sure I got back. Got back to the hotel, kind of just chilled. Had my mom and brother there, which was cool, and made Shabbos dinner and lunch with a couple of other religious guys that were there. Went to the field Sunday for like pregame practice or whatever it was, and Josh and I came up to me and was like, "Hey, I think we're gonna have you start one of the games." I was like, "Oh, all right." Like, that's interesting, but all right. I was like, "Which game?" He's like, "Game 3." So I'm like going through my head. I'm like, "All right, today we play Nicaragua, and then we got Puerto Rico the next day." And it's like, "What's Game 3?" I was like, "Oh, it's the Dominican Republic." So it's like, all right, that should be fun. And he's like, "But you can't tell anybody yet, but I'm just letting you know because we want to, like, if you want to throw a bullpen or whatever today." I was like, all right. So obviously I told my parents that was about it. And my dad's like, all right, now I have to fly down or whatever it was. And my sister, I think, had some school stuff or basketball or something or whatever, so she wasn't able to make it. But my family came down, and I was like, I'm not gonna ruin this. I'm not telling my friends. I'm not telling anybody. Like, I told my parents, that's it. So the games go by, and it was just really cool to be in the dugout and kind of be around those guys, especially, I mean, that first game was a wild game. Making a comeback off of Loizaga, which growing up a Yankees fan was pretty cool to see in person, and then obviously a little cooler that we were able to kind of get some runs off them.
Yeah.
But that game goes, and the Monday game happens, and it goes super well. So we got to the Tuesday game, and I was kind of just relaxing most of the day, and I was more excited than I was nervous. I was a couple of the older guys on the team, like Dean Kramer, Richard Blyer, and the guys like that had kind of been around a little bit. They were giving me some advice, just not to be too nervous, like almost like the same talk I was giving myself, where it was like, you're not really supposed to be here. Like, you're not expected to do well, so just go out there and enjoy the moment. Kind of giving me that speech, and I went out there and didn't really know what to expect. I'd say the most nerves I felt were probably walking out to warm up, just kind of walking out. But then once I like looked around and saw the crowd, and how it started to fill up and all the noise with DR, I was like, with the DR fans who were awesome. It was kind of, I just started enjoying the moment, and thankfully I think it helped the nerves a little bit. Um, just kind of to get out there pregame and look around and see all the fans and get used to it. Played catch, warmed up, whatever it was, and then got out on the mound. First couple pitches were a little nerve wracking, but then once I got the first strike, it was kind of game time, so it was good.
Yeah, it's so funny because in a lot of other sports, it's like if you were going up against like LeBron or whatever in basketball, like that's not going to end well. But because of the
Yeah,
nature of baseball with like pitcher hitter dynamics, like when you're facing Juan Soto, like there's no guarantee that dude is getting a base hit off you. Like you are still the pitcher, you're still trying to get him out, you're still getting him out like a large percentage of the time. But there's still got to be
yeah,
something to like for the people who, maybe don't remember all the details of that WBC, Jacob skimmed over a couple details. That DR Dominican Republic lineup that year was like the most ridiculous baseball lineup I've ever maybe seen assembled. They had like Rafael Devers coming off of the bench as like a bonus piece that it's like, oh yeah, if we need an at bat late, maybe Devers can give us one. But what was it? It was like Machado, Vladdy, Julio Rodriguez, Soto, like dude after dude after dude. And for you to suddenly get the call and be like, you're facing these guys tomorrow when, yeah, like Israel had gone up against Puerto Rico the night before, which is another baseball juggernaut. And we don't have to talk about how that game went. So for you, it must have been this crazy mix of emotions of like, one, like, oh my God, I'm actually facing these guys. Two, like, well, it's my job to get them out. Like, I'm not just gonna go up there and just like throw him a meatball. It's like, well, Juan Soto's gonna get a hit off of me anyway, so I'm just gonna throw him a meatball.
yeah,
And then you go out there and you like actually punch out Manny Machado. So like when that happens, like what was it? It was Machado, Pena, and Gary, right?
yeah.
Well, oh wait, dude, what was Gary like? Because you're a Yankees guy growing up. That's like the guy you've watched for years and years.
Yeah, it was cool. I mean, it was cool. I'd say so. People always ask me kind of like what was going through your mind after you struck him out, or whatever, and it was like there was not like a whole lot going through your mind at that time. Like I said, like I was nervous until I got strike one, and then once I got strike one, I was in the game, and it was like obviously like you said, like Soto was the first at bat, and I really just tried not to focus too much on who was up there, um, because then like it's obviously you gotta enjoy the moment at the time, but you also want to make sure, like you said, that I'm competing, and like you said, like if I'm throwing 94 down the middle or whatever it is, they have just as good of a chance of hitting it as if Garrett Cole was throwing 94 down the middle or whatever it is. So that's kind of my mindset going in, just to really attack the zone with my stuff and trust it, and whatever happens, happens. Um, so it definitely worked out a little better than I thought it would, if I'm being honest. But I'd say there wasn't really anything specific. But after the Gary one, I didn't really think of that one too. I mean, it was obviously cool, like growing up, watching him and seeing him be part of those Yankees runs in the 2016. Well, when he came up in 2016 and dominated, and then 17, 19, those teams that kind of went on those runs, being able to strike him out. But I'd say I got taken out right after that. They don't want me seeing Soto a second time. But I will say the kid that came in punched him out, so it was good to leave my runner on. So I was kind of more reflecting on the whole outing. I mean, there's obviously video of me kind of smiling as I was coming off, and I guess I really didn't like believe that what just happened, and that I was even forget the actual strikeouts. It was just that I was able to have that opportunity. Because like I said before, like as a pitcher, you got to be confident in your abilities, and like I said, like I knew that if I went out there and just trusted my stuff and threw it in the zone, that I would be just as tough to hit as any other pitcher that could throw. It was just making sure that it was in the zone and having the confidence behind it. I think I was just more in shock that I was even in that place to begin with, I guess.
Yeah, I can't even imagine when you like after you face each hitter and after you have the big strikeouts and all that. when you're on the mound in there, are you able to like for a brief second take a step back and be like, damn, that was crazy? Or is it only once you get off the mound that it's like, all right, when I was in there, I gotta be like focused on the next hitter at all times. But when you step off, it's like, oh my God, I just faced like 9 of the best hitters on the planet and got a lot of them out.
It wasn't as much after each batter. I guess it kind of, I guess almost helped that Soto hit that double to start.
Mhm.
And then Julio Rodriguez grounded out to kind of move him over, and then I struck out Machado after that. And there wasn't really a whole lot of time because it was like, all right, I can't really enjoy this much because there's a guy on third base.
True.
And then I finished the first inning, gave up a run, but I was like, it went pretty solid.
Mhm.
And I was pretty happy. Went to the dugout, and Josh Zai came up to me. He's like, all right, you got another one? I was like, yeah, I got another one. Like, I'm in the moment or whatever, competing. I'm like, yeah, I got it. So I went back out there. And then once I got taken out for good, um, I was kind of trying to hold back a little bit. I forget who it was, but it was maybe either Mervis or Geloff who was at first and second, or maybe whoever it was. It was one of the infielders.
Yep.
But it was they kind of saw that I was trying to hold back a little smile, and I'm like, dude, you can smile, like that was awesome, whatever. And Kinsler came out to get me, and I was like, dude, that was sick, like good job, whatever. And it was really cool to be able to experience that, and hopefully experience it again in the next couple of years, and maybe not be the that 19-year-old that struck out Machado. Maybe we could go on a run.
Yeah, dude, I like the sound of that. What was it like playing for the coaching staff? It was Kinsler, Euclid, Josh Zide. Anyone else in there that I'm forgetting?
Yeah, Brad Ausmus was
Oh,
the bench
yeah,
coach.
duh. What was that like?
And then
Those are like baseball guys. Those are like real names of people now.
yeah, that was really cool. Once you meet them, it's kind of like a little bit of a starstruck moment. But then once you get to know them and talk to them a little bit, you realize that they're just like the same guys that your teammates are, just maybe a couple years older. But they're the same normal baseball guys that have just been around the game for a long time and really just enjoy the game and are there to have fun and have that same experience as well. So it was really cool, obviously, to share a clubhouse and dugout with them and get to pick their brains a little bit. Um, but yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah, it's cool. You talked about how there's kind of this like new wave of Jewish young players that are all kind of coming up at the same time now. Like in the big leagues right now, there's Zach Geloff, Mervis, Spencer Horowitz, and then like you and Harrison and Eric and a whole of like a lot of other guys that are still coming up in like the next couple of years, hopefully. Is there like a fraternity among these like Jewish guys? Like, did you know a decent amount of them before you were going into the WBC, or was that your first time meeting a lot of them?
Honestly, I didn't know any of them except for Josh Wolf. I texted with a little bit, just kind of over Instagram. But I didn't know. I don't think I knew any of them. So it was just a whole new crew that I met. Haven't really stayed in touch much with most of them. Like I said, like I was the youngest guy there by far, so it was kind of hard to connect with some of the guys that were 30 years old or 25,
Yeah, I
30,
can
whatever it
imagine.
was. Um, but but like you said, we got a bunch of guys coming up around the same time, and hopefully this next one, I'll be able to go down there and kind of build some more relationships.
Yeah, absolutely. There's also just like there was something so cool, I think, for every single Jewish baseball fan of seeing all these guys that it's like no reporters ever at, Matt Mervis's or, even like the really bigger names like Jock Peterson and the other guys that played that year. No reporters ever at those guys' locker asking them about like their Jewish identity. So when we hear baseball players are Jewish a lot of the time, it's like, oh, like, that's awesome. Like I want to root for them now, but you don't really know like to what level there's like a real connection, like how invested are they? But there was
Yeah.
something about seeing like all those dudes standing there in the Israel jersey with the pinstripes and like the Jewish star on the hat that must have been pretty cool for you just to look around and be like, wow, like sure, I'm the only one that keeps all these weird rules and like won't eat pork and can't fly on Saturdays and stuff like that. But like all these dudes care about their Jewish identity enough that they all want to come out here and like wear this uniform and proudly represent the Jewish people. That's got to be pretty sick.
Yeah, it was awesome to see, especially like I said, watching the 2017 one and having some of those guys be on the team still and be some of the older guys that were kind of leading the way, like LeVarn Way and Ty Kelly and Josh Ide being the pitch coach who obviously pitched for them or then. So it was really cool to kind of see those guys come back and represent like they did, and then seeing some of the younger guys that are some top prospects that are coming up now and having success early. Seeing them play then and know that, I mean, I don't want to speak for everybody, but I myself had an unbelievable time, and I can't imagine that many people didn't.
Mhm.
So seeing some of those guys be represent Team Israel like that, and hopefully be willing to represent them again in a couple years will is very cool.
Yeah, has your a moment like that, or I guess your career as a whole, changed like your Jewish identity at all? I guess I'm curious, like how has people talk again? We were talking before about how like everyone says like, oh, baseball is the most Jewish sport and all that stuff, but we talked a lot about how the times that when baseball and Judaism clash. But have there been times where you've realized like, wow, like baseball has really made me more deeply appreciate my Judaism in a certain way, or vice versa? Like, how do you see that relationship?
I'd say maybe the biggest way is kind of when those things contradict. Is being able to put my religion first. I guess kind of increases that identity. I'd say. Um, I don't know. I don't know like exactly. I don't know really if it has kind of changed my perspective on it much. Like I said, because I've kind of been doing the same thing for a while, like going back to when I was younger. But being like, obviously being proud to be Jewish and like all the guys that play for Team Israel as well, being able to be proud to be Jewish, and seeing that and seeing that there's a whole bunch of us that were willing to go out there and play for Team Israel and hopefully be able to play for them again next year, was definitely awesome to see, and hopefully it'll keep that going for many more years to come, and hopefully there'll be a couple more of us.
Awesome, dude. Well, this has been an awesome time. I really, really appreciate you giving me all this time. Looking forward to seeing much, much, much more success in the minors this year with Team Israel next year, all that. Is there anything you want to leave the people with? One last message?
Nope, I'm all good.
All right, awesome.
Appreciate it.
Jacob Steinmetz, you're the absolute man. Truly, like a really, really cool story for Orthodox and Jewish kids everywhere to look up to. So I appreciate you taking the time, man. We'll have to do it again soon.
Awesome. Yeah, appreciate you having me.